Yes, there are practical things that any ordinary South African can do, and we need to take part in that. I know that at the PSA we are working and researching, because we know lists are going out on WhatsApp, boycott this, boycott that, but we want to begin to give people real and tangible items and names and barcodes to say, these are items sold in this store, don't buy it, and best case scenario, go fill a trolley with it and park it off somewhere in the supermarket. So this is the kind of things that ordinary people did in the anti-apartheid movement, and we need to take a feather out of their cap and say, this is what we can do on a day-to-day basis. South Africa does trade with Israel. They do a lot of trade with Israel, and we need to break that. One of the other things that we are practically trying to do is to get our unions on board, particularly the transport union, as we did in 2010, to say, don't offload any goods that are coming from Israel. Let it rot from where it comes from. And yes, the resolution, which is a start from the ANC, needs to be made practical, needs to be made real. The downgrading of the embassy. In fact, we would like to break all diplomatic ties with the state of Israel until Israel is no longer an apartheid state. I think amazing group of solidarity activists throughout the country. I just want to acknowledge that we also have Mohammed Desai from BDS with us here today, and we know he works tirelessly. He's the #1 enemy of the Zionists in South Africa. Mohammed, you have all of our support. Can we all give him a good round of support? Thanks, Mohammed. I have a message of support from the advocacy group Cage Africa. It lends its support to the PSA, to the ideal of a liberated Aqsa. Cage, with its UK office, campaigns against the abusive of the so-called war on terror. The occupation of Palestine is at the center of this global war, with the US and the UK taking the lead from Israel in its policies directed against Muslims and human rights and social justice movements throughout the world. These policies include legislation which is in the UK and the US, which criminalizes Palestinian activism. This is the new challenge that comrades outside of South Africa are beginning to face, where BDS is beginning to be criminalized, and they even want to arrest and detain activists who campaign for boycotts and divestments and sanctions against Israel. Cage provides legal assistance to members of the Palestinian activist groups who have been stopped and searched at airports when they attempt to enter these countries. Under new legislation in the United Kingdom, you could be compelled to hand over your electronic devices and your passwords at airports so that security state can monitor your communication and determine your political beliefs. This type of draconian legislation poses a clear threat to journalists, human rights defenders, lawyers, and activists like yourselves. It has at its root the Zionist state's intent to criminalize all resistance to its abuse. Cage campaigns for an end to this legislation. The message goes on, and we will try and publish it in social media. Thank you very much for Cage Africa. Can we give them a round of support? It's amazing that we have young people who are so strong and so fearless, and we hope we can take inspiration from them, and that the young people that are here with us today, the young people in our families, in our homes, they hear about Jana Jihad, and they hear about Ahmed Wabshir, and they hear about Muhammad Nawaja, and they hear about these young activists who are leading the struggle against apartheid Israel. I think some important messages. You know, one of the things that amazes me about the young kids, Jana, Wasim, and really we must take this hand to hand to young people, is the facts on the ground that we are listening to and hearing today. There's some just amazing sound bites like Oslo and the peace accord was actually the second Nakba. These are realities which we have to live with in the history of this struggle. And I think about our own youth who can only relate to statistics about which footballer is being sold and for how much. I really think that there's a lot that we need to do. I think that the fact that Al-Aqsa that the Zionists can do this to Al-Aqsa and that the Palestinian people continue to suffer generally across from the river to the sea is based on the fact that the Arab world is so divided, and it's more divided in the last few months, and that is why the Zionists can take advantage. And I think it's about time that we raise our voices against this illegal, draconian, barbaric sometimes, when you look at what's happening in Yemen, leaders of the so-called Arab world. It's time that we start raising our voices and say that we're not going to accept this anymore, because they are as oppressive, if not worse sometimes, than the Zionist state. And I say that with all conviction, that we need a better world for tomorrow. And this division within the Arab world and within our own society, where people are more interested in about fighting their own egos and their own names and no names and whatever else, is why we stand divided and weakens our struggle. We need to take focus on what the real important things are, and the real important things are the liberation of just and honest people who just want to live a peaceful life. And I think I applaud you today for taking that stand. There are so many people who will on a whim say, oh, we cannot support this, there's mingling of the sexes, there's this and that. And I think that those kind of petty things are just excuses not to be part of a struggle for justice, and we must condemn them for where they stand. And we, as ordinary people, need no longer to follow such thinking. We need to guide those so-called leaders in our community to say there are bigger issues. There are real issues on the ground. There are people dying. There's Ahmed Dawabshe, whose family burnt and he got 80% body wounds, and he's one of hundreds of thousands of people who are suffering across the globe. We need to take a stand. You have taken a stand. We're going to take the struggle further through the PSA, the BDS, and all organizations that fight for human rights. We will ensure that tomorrow will be a better hope and a more hopeful and brighter future, just like the yellow house that Ahmed Dawabshe painted for us. And there will be two suns, a new rising of a world that is better for all.